Well, beautiful souls. I'm Christy Godwin, psychic medium and life coach, and we are here moseying our way through the emotions. Today, we're talking about anxiety. Anxiety is something that people are familiar with. I mean, everyone has a experience with an anxiety. Being on this planet it's a normal part of life, but what is it about anxiety when it gets out of control? So let's break it down. From my other videos, you know that anxiety is an emotion. Emotion is data. Data is just something we need to process and figure out what it's telling us. Okay. So, anxiety, when handled correctly, is a perfect example of what all emotions are meant to do: propel us towards action that will ultimately enhance our lives and away from danger. Anxiety can be from an actual event that you're doing, something such as walking on stage. A lot of people have anxiety walking on stage, or it can arise by just the thought of doing something, such as imagining yourself walking on stage. It's when anxiety turns to worrying and imagining scenarios that may or may not occur, it becomes unproductive. This anxiousness can manifest itself as stress and muscle tension, fear of the future, mentally reworking past events in our mind, flashes of panic or fear, and then it can ultimately lead to obsessions, compulsions, and avoidance of social situations. And also, it can lead people to being overly negative. Now, when it gets to that point, that type of anxiety can really keep you stuck. It can keep you stuck where you are in life and keep you from moving forward and living your life to the fullest that it could be. Anxiety can take a life of its own and easily overshadow whatever started it in the first place. You may have one little event that started some anxiety, but then it just kept propelling. The negative thoughts just kept going forward and working all these different scenarios out in your mind caused, you remember what the original thing was that you were anxious about. It has taken just a complete life of its own. Anxiousness can put your body into a code red. You think about something when you're walking on stage, your pulse races, your thoughts race, your heart beats faster, your legs get shaky, mouth gets dry, your chest tightens. And that's fine if it's something that you really should feel anxious about. But whenever you're playing these scenarios over in your head, it's an imagined event, but your body doesn't know it's imagined. Your body is still having the physical symptoms of the event that's not even occurring. Many people also experience anxieties, irritation, and impatience or anger, which are fed by the underlying feelings of helplessness and a desire to control. That's when it can really start affecting the relationships in your life. Sometimes people can confuse anxiety with fear. Fear, let's break this down. Fear is an automatic response to a specific threat or danger. Fear can be realistic, such as falling into a deep body of water and you can't swim, or unrealistic, such as riding on a perfectly working elevator. Remember, fear is very narrowly focused. There is a bear charging me. I mean, survive this event. That is real fear. Anxiety, on the other hand, is usually irrational. You're playing out scenarios in your head that have not yet occurred and are very unlikely to occur. Let's take the bear event. A bear is charging you. That is fear. That is immediate. I need to survive. But you want to go walking up and down your street, which you live in the middle of a city, and there has been no bears in your area for hundreds of years, but you don't want to do it because you're afraid a bear is going to come after you. That's a little bit unrealistic. You are playing out a scenario that is very unlikely to occur. Physical responses to fear and anxiety are very similar. That's why people get them confused. You think about the anxiety of about to walk on stage, those symptoms very much mimic fear. How do you tell the difference? Understanding the workings of fear will better help you understand anxiety when you're thinking about, okay, this scenario is definitely fear related, meaning it when you can identify the fear-based one, then you can easily identify when it's anxiety. So we said before, fear is related to survival, a response to danger. Anxiety is more of a worry of a potential that most likely will never occur. As we with all emotions, anxiety isn't bad. Signal anxiety can alert us to danger, both real and imagined. It works very well when there is true danger. Okay, let's say that you are allergic to peanut butter, but you're anaphylactic, and then you're around a lot of people that are eating peanut butter. That can legitimately make you anxious. If you grew up in a household that every time you voiced your opinions, you were made to feel stupid, and then you now have a hard time expressing yourself, that is more of anxiety because now you are an adult. People listen to you. They don't make you feel stupid, but you keep being triggered to imagining what it felt like when you were a child when you spoke up. And so that imagined anxiety is now keeping you from speaking and standing in your truth. How do you know if anxiety is chronic? How do you know if it's being on this planet, you're going to be anxious every once in a while. So how do you know if you have chronic anxiety? First, let's talk about healthy fears, and then we'll compare it to how chronic anxiety makes you feel. Okay, so now a healthy fear alert. You are supposed to be alone in your house. You're not expecting company. You live alone, but you hear someone in your house. You see your child hanging precariously from a tree limb that's up high. Those are very much legitimate fears. Hearing squealing tires. Have you ever been sitting at a red light and there's nowhere to go? You're stopped. And then all of a sudden you hear these squealing tires and you look in your rearview mirror and you see this car is now propelling towards you. Those are very legitimate fears. Now, chronic anxiety feels like your fear alerts are alerting you to every single thing in your environment. So your body can't tell the difference. It puts your body in a constant state of that fear alert. How do you know you're doing it? When you're playing past events over and over in your mind, just to reassess and pick apart your behavior to ensue all went well and you did the right thing. We all have times where we do that. All of us at some point have played out scenarios from the past, either to make ourselves feel guilty, which there's another video on guilt, or to just reassess. Did I do the right thing? Should I have done something differently? And just constantly picking that apart. When you're doing that and you're not stopping it and it's a daily practice, that's going to put you into chronic anxiety. In an attempt, I see this a lot in my life coaching, in an attempt to keep future hurt from happening, pain or mistakes at bay, you play scenarios of every possible outcome in your head. You know, those like, what if this happens? What if this happens? What if that happens? And none of them are likely to occur. This type of worrying can make us feel like we're taking some kind of action, even if it's futile action. Whenever we're playing those events out, it kind of makes us feel like we're being productive, even though we're really not. Because emotion has a strong biological component. Also, some people are more prone to anxiety than others. Some of it is how we're raised, some of it is biological. Our moods are regulated by chemicals called neurotransmitters. People are becoming more and more familiar with that. Neurotransmitters, when they are balanced, can help keep us calm and focus and give us a sense of well-being. That's what they're there for. Serotonin helps us feel calm. Dopamine elevates our moods. Neuroepinephrine influences how our body reacts to stress. And there's a few others, but this isn't a medical video. It's just about letting you know that there is a biological component. Now, for these neurotransmitters to do their jobs properly, we not only have to have a sufficient amount overall, but the correct balance. This balance occurs not only from nature, but also from nurture. If your parents had the correct balance and a healthy set of mood regulators, chances are you will also. Now, it doesn't mean that if your parents did have a healthy balance and that you don't. Of course, there are occurrences where that will happen. Also, if your parents were able to regulate their emotions and moods chances are you learn to model that from just observing their behavior. A lot of anxiety starts from our thoughts. And it's a scary place up there sometimes if we don't get control over it, but not the actual actions in our lives. How we process our environment is key to controlling our thought patterns. When our thoughts start spiraling, we've all been in those moments where we just have these negative thoughts that just start spiraling, and we get in that mode of playing out 1,000 different scenarios that will likely never happen. But we have to start playing these scenarios out in our head. That's when some people can start compulsive behaviors with the intent of reducing the feeling of anxiety. Brene Brown actually talks a lot about that, and she's done a study on it that trying to control the outcome and play these scenarios out in your head so you can be prepared for anxiety when it happens actually isn't helpful. We feel helpful because we're feeling like we're doing some kind of action to keep it from occurring, but in the end, it doesn't alleviate if that actual event occurs. Some of the continually compulsive behavior that can happen when we are just constantly playing these scenarios out is, the people, you might have to continually check the stove. You have to check the doors to ensure they're locked. Those turn light switches off and on, those compulsive behaviors can be a reaction to chronic anxiety, because this is a way of reducing anxiety. When we feel like we're dealing with a problem, we're checking on the stove, when we're checking the door, turning the light, making sure we're turning the lights off and on so they're working. That is a way of reducing our anxiety, or we think it is. It actually just makes the problem worse. It's important to remember feeling afraid and anxious is a natural part of being on this planet. You're not going to be on this planet and at some point not feel anxious or not feel afraid. Fear is natural and necessary. It helps us warn us of danger. Anxiety, unfortunately, is just inevitable. I want you to remember, though, you are powerful and you do not have to remain a victim to these emotions. Emotions are data. A quick way to get control of your anxiety instantly, or at least reduce it in the moment, is to focus on your breath. I know that sounds like, yeah, that's not going to help. It's not going to help, but it is. If you are focusing and have these thoughts spiraling, another thing I say is if you have a negative thought rolling around your head, to try to develop a positive mantra. But some people are just too far into it to do that. Focus on your breath. Inhale and make sure your exhale is longer than your inhale. When you are focusing on your breath, you're not focusing on anything else. It helps you get control of the irrational thoughts. It gives you something else to focus on. Regulated breathing also helps regulate your nervous system. The next thing you can do is to frame your thoughts and engage in sensible self-talk. Stick to the facts. Stick to what you know for sure is happening. So those are just a couple of ways to get control of your anxiety. Please know you are a powerful, powerful spirit on this earth, and you do not have to remain a victim to your emotions.